He was the boy who could not walk, cursed, mocked, crawling in the dirt. But that crippled child would rise to defeat a sorcerer king, unite 12 nations, and build one of the richest empires the world has ever seen. Welcome to Deleted Histories. Today we uncover the story of a boy who would become king, the real Lion King. It's the 13th century. Europe is clawing its way out of the Dark Ages. Kings squabble over castles. Knights ride under banners for scraps of land and names that will be forgotten by winter. In the Middle East, crusades burn across holy cities. In Asia, the Mongols thunder over the steppe, knitting continents together with hooves and iron. And across the vast Sahara, another empire is stirring. Not one of castles, but of caravans. Not one of parchment, but of memory. Not one of feudal scraps, but of rivers of gold that run beneath the earth. Its king would become a legend. A boy born unable to walk, a child mocked as cursed. And yet he would rise to unite tribes, defeat a sorcerer king, and build an empire so wealthy it would shake the medieval world. His name was Sundiata Keita, the Lion King of Mali, and his story is where myth and history collide. Before we meet Sundiata, we need to understand his world. The land of Mali is wide, grasslands breathe under a ceiling of sky. The Niger River makes a slow gesture through the earth, curving, feeding rice fields and fishers' nets. Forests at the edge beat with hunters' drums. Villages of red laterite and thatch breathe smoke, and stories into the evening air. And beyond Mali is the Sahara, not empty, as foreign maps suggest, but alive with movement. Caravans as long as a day's walk, camels stepping like ships, bells chiming. From Tagaza and Taoudeni, slabs of salt cut from the earth. From the south, kola nut, ivory, and fine gold dust wrapped in leather pouches. From the north, horses, copper, cloth dyed the colour of night, and books, carrying the thought of Cairo, Kairouan, Andalusia. This is not a forgotten corner. It is a crossroads. It is a marketplace where the wind carries prices in 3 languages and a prayer in a 4th. And in the evenings, griots and the memory keepers sit beside the fires and sew time together with their voices. They recite genealogies that stretch like rivers. They hold the debts of kings. They are living libraries and they do not forget. This is the world Sundiata will inherit, if he can stand to claim it. Sundiata Keita is born in Niani, the son of King Nare Magan and his second wife, Sogolon. But his birth is not a trumpet. It is a whisper. His legs are twisted. He cannot stand. His mother is mocked as plain strange, the buffalo woman. And a crippled prince in a land where kings are meant to ride and hunt looks like a curse. Yet the griots remember a prophecy. From Sogolon, they said, would come the lion who unites the people, a child of contradiction, weak in body, impossible in destiny. But people are practical. They see what is in front of them. They see a boy who crawls in the dust. Children laugh, courtiers whisper, even his father despairs. Until the day the insults become too much, Sundiata demands a staff, not a reed, not a walking stick, the iron rod of a blacksmith. The court gathers to watch the humiliation. Instead, they watch the impossible. He plants the iron in the earth, drags himself upright. The rod bows like a palm in storm. The ground itself seems to answer. For the first time, the boy stands. The griots say the day Sundiata rose, the earth trembled with him. The lion had found his legs. Standing's not the same as reigning. When King Nare Magan dies, the throne does not go to Sundiata. It goes to his half-brother, Dankaran Tuman, the son of the first wife, Sasuma Berete. Call becomes a net of whispers. Sasuma fears Sogolon, fears the prophecy, fears the boy who stood. There are looks, then plots, then orders. An exile begins. Sundiata leaves the country of his birth with his mother and siblings. They cross borders like rivers. The world widens. In Ouagadougou, the old Ghana, he sees the bones of an empire. Once the marketplace of the world, now diminished, still proud. He learns a first lesson. Kingdoms are mortal. Gold glitters and then it is dust. In Maima, a king offers refuge. Here Sundiata's hands harden into a warrior's. He learns to ride horses, how to move men like pieces on a board, how to wait for the hour that belongs to you. The griot Bala Faseke is with him, a voice like a river, a memory like a net. He recites ancestors until they stand in the room. He tunes Sundiata's future to the pitch of the past. Exile is humiliation. Exile is apprenticeship. Exile is a whetstone. The boy who crawled becomes a commander. The outcast gathers allies the way a river gathers streams. Meanwhile, back in Mali, darkness grows. King Sumaoro Kante, a name sharpened to a blade. King of the Soso, conqueror, tyrant. To his followers, a master of the hidden arts. He wears iron shoes that no blade can cut. He hangs a cloak of skins in his chamber, the air thick with the stink of death. Owls perch in the rafters like punctuation marks, each a sentence ending in silence. Villages burn, children vanish into slavery. Fields are trampled, drums go quiet. Dankaran Tuman flees. He is king of nothing. Mali is a throat under a boot. Sumaoro seizes Balafaseke, Sundiata's griot, as a trophy. To steal a man's griot is to steal his memory. To steal his memory is to shorten his future. Fear is a tool, and Sumaoro plays it like an instrument. But fear breeds whispers, and whispers become messages. Across borders, across forests and savannah, a rumour walks. There is a lion in exile. There is a prince who has learned. There is a boy who stood, and Mali sends for him. When the messengers find Sundiata, they find not a boy, but a general. He does not come alone. Exile has written him a ledger of gratitude and debt. King Sumaoro has threatened, now pledge men, grain, horses. Hunters come, carrying the silence of forests on their shoulders. Archers grind herbs into paste to poison their arrowheads. Women gather to sing war songs that turn fear into fire. Nana Triban, Sundiata's half-sister, enters the story like a knife masked as a smile. In the epics, it is she who slips past Sumaoro's guard, who learns the secret of his talisman, who returns with a whisper. Even sorcery has a seam you can pull. Sundiata writes letters with hooves and dust. He stitches a coalition from what Sumaoro has broken. The savannah begins to move under him. The march to war is not only noise, it is logistics. It is bread and water, fodder and firewood, scouts like needles threading the horizon. The griots sing the names of the allied chiefs. The hunters consult omens, the flight of birds, the reading of bones. Mothers tie charms to their sons' wrists, bits of leather holding prayers and salt. At night the camps breathe. Griots tell tales until courage finds a place to sleep. Balafaseke's voice carries like a lantern. He hangs history between two poles and lets the wind play it like a drum. Sundiata listens more than he speaks. He studies maps in the dirt, watches how the land folds. He places cavalry where the grass is firm, archers where the wind will carry death farther. He carries the quiet of someone who knows his hour has come. Dawn is powder and dust. The drums start low, a heartbeat made of wood. Two armies write themselves onto the same page. On one side, Sundiata's coalition. Horsemen bright with leather and brass. Spearmen behind wicker shields. Archers with strings tight enough to sing. Hunters in garments that blend with scrub and shadow. On the other, Sumaoro's men. Iron ringing, shields crowded. Their king a dark star at the centre of gravity. The first exchanges are arrows. The sky crows with feathered lines. Shields lift, horses rear. The dust becomes a roof. Then movement. Cavalry breaks the horizon line, pouring forward like water let loose. The clash is a house collapsing. Spears bite, hooves crush. Men shout names so their ancestors will know where to find them. Sumaoro walks through it as if it were a dream. Spears shatter against him. Arrows fall broken at his feet. He's wrapped in something that is not leather, not iron, a reputation turned into armour. The front bends but does not break. Then a different sound enters the day. A rumour moving faster than hooves. Nana Triban's secret. In some tellings it is the spur of a white rooster stitched into a charm. In others, it is a fibre woven from countless small defeats the tyrant ignored. In all, it is the seam in invincibility. Sundiata has prepared arrows in silence. Their heads are kissed with this knowledge. He lifts his arm. The archers loose. We do not need to see the arrow land. We only need to see what happens next. Sumaoro hesitates. Hesitation is an empire cracking along a fault line. He turns. The sorcerer king who could not be touched becomes a man who can run. Into the hills, into legend, into a story that stops mid-sentence. He will not be seen again. The army that was held together by fear looks up and sees something else. Sky where a roof had been. fear evaporates like dew. The field belongs to Sundiata. Victory is not peace. It is work. Sundiata does not sit. He moves. He pries open the cages Sumaro built. He returns stolen griots to stolen kings. He sends horsemen to escort farmers back to fields, to guard wells, to walk markets until traders remember prices again. He calls a great assembly at Kurukan Fuga. The clans arrive like constellations, each with a history wound tight inside. They do more than celebrate. They write, not with ink but with oath. Not in books but in memory. A charter is born, a scaffolding of law and custom. Call it constitution if you must. Centuries before the word will be minted in Europe. It names obligations. It balances power between lineage and office. It sets the dignity of families as a wall kings may not kick down. It speaks of women not as property but as persons with protections. It treats the land not as fuel, but as inheritance, a thing to be guarded so that grandchildren can recognise the world. It formalises the role of griots. Memory is made an institution, history a profession, truth a craft to be learned and taught. The assembly is a hinge. On one side, chaos, and on the other, a country. Sundiata moves the capital to Niani. He builds not only palaces but roads in the mind. Caravans lengthen, from the mines gold-dusting gourds, from the salt pans, slabs strapped to camels like the pages of a white book, from the forests, cola nuts bitter and bright. From the north, horses that turn fields into thunder and books that turn boys into scholars. Weights and measures are agreed upon. Markets breathe easier. Fairs align with the seasons. Taxes become a tide instead of a flood. Borders mean something, and so do alliances. The old rivalries are not erased. They are repurposed, their edges filed into tools. The griots travel more now, carrying not just old names but new decrees, not just lineage but law. The empire learns to recognise its own voice. And though Sundiata's lifetime will not see Timbuktu's libraries grow fat the way they will under later rulers, the seed is planted. Merchants follow safety, scholars follow merchants, books follow scholars. A path is beaten between Niani and a future where a city of sand will speak in pages. If all this is true, why do so few outside Africa know the name Sundiata Keita? The first answer is simple: paper. His story was sung, not written. Where Europe locked its memory in ink and vellum, Mali braided its memory into voices and ceremonies, into rhythm and performance. A living archive that requires a living archivist. The second answer is uglier: erasure. When colonisers came, they carried not only guns and flags but textbooks. They allowed African history to be a rumour at best, a void at worst. It is easier to rule a people if you convince them they have no past. So the Epic of Sundiata became regional knowledge instead of global knowledge. It kept breathing in griot chests, passed from teacher to apprentice, performed in courtyards and festivals, while the world pretended Africa had woken up yesterday. But memory does not die if someone is assigned to guard it, and in Mali, someone was. So how much of this is history, and how much is story? Did the iron staff bend? Did the ground tremble when the boy stood? Did a rooster's spur break a sorcerer's spell? We can sort some things into the basket labelled fact. There was a Sundiata Keita. There was a Soso conqueror who was beaten back. There was a consolidation that created an empire called Mali. Trade routes expanded. Laws were spoken into custom. A dynasty was born. Other things belong to the basket labelled meaning. The iron staff is a lesson about endurance, about a body that refuses the prison it was born into. The trembling ground is a lesson about how whole countries wait for someone to stand. The rooster's spur is a lesson about tyrannies. There is always a seam, and it is found by listening as much as by striking. And in between the two baskets there is a third. Call it memory. The griots hold contradictory versions without panic because the point is not to flatten the past but to keep it usable. A people does not only need dates and lists, it needs images that help it behave with courage. When you listen for long enough, you realise the categories bleed into each other. That is not a failure. That is how human beings keep truth alive when paper burns. We should also talk about what happened after. An empire is a house with many rooms and many owners. After Sundiata, heirs will argue. Borders will swell and shiver, then settle. Some kings will be wise, others will be expensive. But the shape he carved into the land remains visible. Trade will lace the Sahara. Wealth will pool and spill. Cities like Timbuktu will dress themselves in books. Another ruler, Mansa Musa, will walk to Mecca with so much gold that Cairo's prices forget themselves for years. And somewhere in the background of all that, a story will keep being told, of a boy who could not walk, of a day when the earth trembled, of a battle where a spell was broken and a country remembered its name. Because forgetting is not neutral. Because every time a schoolbook jumps from Rome to Renaissance and skips everything south of the Mediterranean that is not a war, the world gets thinner. Because 1,000 years ago, when Europe was arguing over castles, a disabled child in West Africa taught grown men how to stand. Because law can be spoken before it is written. Because empires can be built without pretending memory is a luxury. Because somewhere today a person hears the word Africa and thinks of a whole instead of a continent. And stories are how you fill holes with ground. In the 13th century, while kings in Europe argued over stone walls, a boy in West Africa pulled himself upright with an iron staff and refused to sit down again. He learned in exile what his enemies did not know in comfort. He used alliances the way others use swords. He answered sorcery with strategy, and fear with a seam no one else noticed. He called the clans and built a roof called law. He turned roads into arteries and markets into lungs. He chose to be remembered in voices instead of vellum, trusting that people would carry him further than paper could. His name was Sundiata Keita, the Lion King of Mali. This has been Deleted Histories. Subscribe for more chilling, strange, or forgotten history. Until next time.